The Center for Disease Control says that more than 35% of the world's population doesn't have access to improved sanitation or an improved water source. The World Health Organization attributes this to more than 2 million deaths a year for ages under 5.
Hi, Nat Geo community. My name is Danielle Emers. I'm coming to you from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, where I've been a teacher since 1995. I teach 7th grade biology and in a wonderful school district that has been part of all of the schools closed down in our area for the coronavirus.
This deserted landscape is normally home to more than 600 6th through 8th grade students. And this is my classroom, where all the magic happens.
So bringing it to you live from home. Hopefully I can convey all the awesome things my students have done in this capstone video. A little background on me. I am absolutely passionate about everything environmental. I run the green team at my school. I've worked with the National Geographic in the last 2 years for the Geo Challenge and trying to tackle plastic in our waterways.
Go Geo Stars. This allows students to become activists. Their innovation and their drive and their imagination and curiosity is what's going to drive solutions of tomorrow.
I love bringing real world problems to my classroom because I think innovation is going to come from our youth, and hopefully our students can see that they are definitely part of this solution. In this particular assignment with our capstone video, we chose to work on water inequity, and my students were taking a look at the role of dehydration and disease as related to waterborne pathogens. And so that's how we started off our unit in talking about what that would look like, especially in infants. And so we started with a pretty cool experiment, which I'm going to share with you now.
My inspiration came from YouTube influencers Mr. Beast and Mark Rober. Their goal with hashtag Team Trees was to plant 20 million trees in 2020. They were a success. After this, I watched a lot of Mark Rober's videos. He's a former NASA scientist, and he created one on drinking nasty swamp water. This really piqued my interest and led us into an exploration about dehydration and disease and how to prevent that. We completed a lab called homeostasis. Students even got specific roles in order to help them work more collaboratively and cooperatively in order to achieve their result. In this experiment, their goal was to make sure that the water level didn't get too low in Homer's cup. Also, their goal was to maintain the temperature of 25 degrees Celsius and make sure that the water color stayed the right color yellow. This represented the electrolytes in the blood. Now, the only caveat to this was that Homer had a hole in the bottom of his cup, so that led him to continually drain the fluids inside. This is a representation of dehydration. Through this experiment, I think students found a lot of success with Homer, and then they moved on to a smaller cup, which was Maggie. In this experiment, they did the same exact thing, trying to control the level in this cup, but we were not as successful. We found that Maggie dehydrated very, very quickly, and they were really had a hard time making sure that they kept the water level. I think that this was a great visual for them to make a connection to show how dehydration occurs so much more quickly in infants. After the experiment, students dove into National Geographic's resource, an article titled Water Inequity. This picture really got them thinking. And so I had them simulate what it would be like to carry water every day, just like many of the women in developing countries do, in order for them to really feel what it was like to actually have to work for your water. I had a gentleman do it and then a lady. And afterward, I asked them, would you like to do this every day? And they both said unequivocally, no, Ms. Emers, just no. In order to facilitate reading the article, I used Google Slides and the Pear Deck add-on extension. I took each section and followed it up with a question. In the section that we looked at on the burden of females, one of my students whose family was from Egypt shared a story about her grandmother who used to have to travel a half an hour to and from school in order to get water for her family. She shared that when her grandmother was late for school, she would be whipped. I believe this really resonated with my students. I also asked them questions like, what would it be like to have to carry your own feces out of your home? They didn't like that idea either, but I think it really helped them to develop some empathy for people who have to do that every single day. We also took a look at toxicity levels here in the United States and the UN's mission in order to reduce waterborne illness across the globe. In many of the students' responses, they really exhibited a deeper empathy and understanding for people's conditions in developing countries. This really fosters the idea of responsibility and helping others who don't have it as fortunate as you would. Finally, we wrapped up with a conclusion question. What are some of the most important things you learned? And this response really sums it up.
When we return to school, students are going to be exploring different diseases, and as a result of this, they'll develop calls to action in order to reduce the spread of disease and spread awareness about the problem. I believe this is the best way to teach, and it's completely within National Geographic's framework. Since my involvement with the Geo Challenge, it really taught me how to incorporate these real-world problems and solutions in order to increase my students' responsibility and global perspective. I'll continue to teach this way because I think this is the best way to make impact in my classroom and impact around the world for a better tomorrow.